Well, good evening, everybody, again. That has held up so well, hasn't it? I mean, absolutely astonishing. And Jonathan, I mean, you were there last week. What did you make of that?
We didn't go by boat, we went by Eurostar. And there was no one to see me off. My wife decided to drop me off at Acton Town, and off I went. But apart from that, no, it was, I'd echo what you said, that was an amazing film to see again. I remember seeing it when it first came out. And I don't know about how many sports fans are here, but there aren't many good sports films, am I fair to say? Am I right to say? We've got a big Brad Pitt film coming out about Formula One next summer. I was at Silverstone earlier in the year, and seeing him stage manage various stuff. He's meant to be a veteran driver coming back. He makes Lewis Hamilton look like a 9-year-old, but there we go. But in terms of good sports films, they're very hard to come by, and I think that is a remarkable film which stays out there. And the haunting, that theme tune is one of the greatest ever, I think, isn't it? You may not like Vangelis, I'm not aware, but he was a difficult character, I know, but that was an extraordinary film score, which was actually put together after the film was shot. He didn't actually do it at the time. He went away and thought, right, okay, how am I going to make this together? And I think that was quite a challenge for Hugh Hudson. He's like, what? No, I'm going to do it. All right, you better get it right. And I think he did.
And of course, combining it with all the other wonderful music ending in Jerusalem, obviously, but all the choral music and the Gilbert and Sullivan and so on. I mean, there was an awful lot of powerful music in it.
Absolutely, no, I mean, it was. And also, some of the acting too. Nigel Havers, who those of you used to live, or still maybe live in Chiswick, who used to go to the Hogarth Club quite a lot. I remember seeing him there, and that's why Art said I was quite intrigued to see that he trained. I never knew that, but I learned that after reading about Esther and so on, and everything that she'd done too. So no, it was a remarkable film, and you also notice how certainly how Harold Abrahams felt his Jewishness, and how that has that necessarily aged well. Probably not, but there we go. We could, if we verge into that area, we could be here all night and get ourselves into deep water.
But it was very powerful on all sorts of levels, both Eric Little's Christianity and the Jewishness. I mean, it's so much more than just a sports film. But just to go back to the Chiswicky bits, Esther Charkham showing that actually that's where they were recruited, that's where they were doing their they were really being put through their paces.
He was a heck of a trainer, Tom McNabb. I mean, he took no prisoners. He was. I met him a few times because when I first joined the BBC, when I came down in 1990, he was great friends with Cliff Morgan, and he and Cliff Morgan were always to run into each other. And if you're ever with Cliff, say, "Oh, come and meet Tom McNabb." He could be a brutal coach. I mean, very well-rounded and thoughtful person, and an expert in his field. But for them to do that would have been punishing, because they needed to get people who knew exactly, or who could do the job exactly as I say about why there are not many good sports films, because it always seems to break down when it really matters.
So he did a wonderful job. But just to get back to the Chiswicky bits, Esther said, which we didn't know, that Hugh Hudson lived in Chiswick on Chiswick Mall, that Ben Cross lived in Flanders Mansions. I mean, Chiswick likes to own the world, and on this film, we normally just claim Downton Abbey as our own, but I think we can now claim bits of Chariots of Fire. But of course, the actual filming wasn't done here; it was done where you were, and you were nearly in it.
I was nearly in it, yes, because in 1980, when they were filming it, I had finished. I'd done some teaching, and then I was looking to try and find a job, so I went to the Chester Job Centre, and it would have been about April or May, and there was an advert for film extra. I thought, well, that sounds quite interesting, because nothing else was packaging this or store here or do this. It's like, that doesn't really appeal, but film extra, I wonder what that's about. So I went to look at it. Was just gave a few more details. Well, that sounds quite good. It's going to be at the Bevington Oval up there. So I picked it off the wall and went to the counter and said, I'd like to do this, please. And they said, okay, yes, and name is yes. And, oh no, sorry, sir, we've just completed that. I said, we just the last two places went an hour ago. So I missed out on starring, not really starring, in Chariots of Fire at the Bevington Oval, where I did actually play some football when I was at Radio Merseyside and so on, and cricket. And if you look carefully, when they were doing some of the films, you could see houses there from 1970 and 1960, but that spoils it all. because that was, of course, the Stade de Colombe. But that was the closest I got to appearing in any Hollywood film, frankly, and least of all, or most of all, Chariots of Fire. But so that was a missed opportunity. As it was, I ended up market gardening for Living Landscapes. They were very good, actually. both in 1980 and I went back in 1981. I wouldn't got that because they'd only one done filming, so therefore I got paid twice. I was quite happy there.
Now, talking about the people that film concentrated on, Harold Abrahams became a BBC commentator. I mean, he was, as the final caption said, I mean, he became the father of British athletics and headed the Amateur Athletics Association and so. But he was a BBC commentator. He was also responsible, or one of the people responsible, for stopping a boycott of the Berlin Games, which some people were wanting to do. And even though he was Jewish, he felt that those games should go ahead, and actually commentated from Berlin, which must have been quite a weird experience.
You wonder whether BBC commentators would be allowed to say too much. And here's Gary Lineker. No. But you know what I mean? That you can make stands about various things, but that was quite that. Probably at the time that was understandable given his history and so on. And maybe if it was Seb Coe, Lord Coe, maybe then people wouldn't mind so much. I mean, Steve Cram, of course, now one of the great athletes, is the lead commentator in terms of athletics for the BBC. Maybe he could get away with it, but I don't think someone like me could.
Indeed, but still.
But I was very happy to be in Paris.
So observations 100 years ago and now, I mean, what was it like being there?
Am I allowed to say I thought the opening ceremony in 1924 was better than the opening ceremony in 2024? You can keep all that, frankly, but anyway. The closing ceremony wasn't too bad. That was much more... I'm not a great fan of opening ceremonies or closing ceremonies. I find them a bit interminable.
Where were you during the opening ceremony?
Do you really want to know? In my hotel room, actually.
Really, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because, I was working the next day I was there at 9 o'clock. My first match was at 9 o'clock, so I had to be in the venue for the indoor arena. Because I was commentating, just to give a bit of a background, I was doing commentary for the indoor volleyball for the world feed, known as the Olympic Broadcasting Services. So I was working for the broadcasting arm of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. So therefore you're quite limited in what you can say. They didn't like you, for example, taking pictures and showing them on social media. That, you know, if you were a commentator and you were going somewhere as a spectator, you couldn't show that because that was, you were there to commentate and work, not to be seen to be getting special treatment. So that the night before, I literally was starting a run of 2 weeks of work, because indoor volleyball started on the Saturday the 27th and it continued until August the 11th. So I was working every day. There were sometimes 4 matches. I'd be doing sometimes a run of 4. So there were long days. So I was just in my hotel room. I'd gone out for something to eat. I do remember thinking I might just go for a walk, because I was living in an area, or staying in an area, where I'd worked before for a European Championship football match. It's quite a nice area near the Porte de Versailles, if anyone knows that. It's a big exhibition area, so there's these huge, like a huge sprawling expanse of exhibition halls. And I thought, well, I'll just go out. And I thought, actually, hang on, that looks a bit forbidding. The rain might come. Literally, as I sat down thinking, do you know what? I'm not going to walk too far. There's some lovely squares and some great restaurants further down, which I discovered 8 years ago. But I thought, I'll just sit here. And suddenly, with about 10 minutes, torrential rain, as you know, if you watched the broadcast, because then it became incredibly dispiriting. And I have to say, whoever thought it was a great idea to have an Olympic opening ceremony on the Seine, you might go, you're sitting around a table, this sounds a bit like W1A almost, but let's have an opening ceremony in the Seine. You think, what a brilliant idea. But no one was able to say, what happens if it rains? Oh, it won't rain, it's summer. Of course, it absolutely shut it down and made everyone look bedraggled. I gave up after I'd seen about, I don't know who was it, that maybe the Solomon Islands had gone by about 9:30. But this is just bedraggled, and I've had enough. And actually, I need to get up at 6 o'clock because I'm off to do 4 matches in a row, and I need to be on my game. And you weren't also, because of the restrictions of what I was doing, you can only commentate on what you see. Don't refer to any matches coming up. Don't refer to matches that have been. Don't talk about the opening ceremony. Talk about only, because you never know when this particular the match I was doing, when it was going to be shown. It's not always live. So therefore, because it was Japan against the Netherlands in women's indoor volleyball, it might have been shown in Japan, it might have been shown in the Netherlands, but you didn't know when anyone else was going to show it, and they might be showing it tomorrow, they might be showing it Monday, Tuesday, so therefore give no time reference. So you just had to go straight in, make no reference about any opening ceremony, and just off we go. It's the first day of competition, and that's it. So that's what I thought. I don't need to research anymore. I'll get very bored by the opening ceremony. Sorry.
Were you seen in vision at all, or was it just?
No. You are just this voice.
You're the voice.
Yes, which is fine by me. Others would like to be in vision. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing, having done most of my work, as you will know, like you, for the radio, BBC Radio. But I gather there were sometimes that it popped up. Indoor volleyball popped up on the BBC, and I think various people saw or heard, for example, the last day of competition, August the 11th, the Sunday. It was a brilliant match. It was the women's gold medal match between Italy, who've never won any medal at all before, and they'd never won men or women gold in indoor volleyball, against the defending champions, the USA. Brilliant match, absolutely outstanding, and Italy won it quite the most complete, supreme performance I've ever seen, I think, almost, by any team, men or women. It was just brilliant. But we got on the BBC for an hour, so that was lovely. Otherwise, we could be talking to ourselves, but you just carry on doing what you're doing. I mean, the sport was absolutely wonderful, so I didn't mind if I was talking to myself or millions.
And how many commentators were there? Were you just doing the feed for everybody?
Yes, I mean, essentially, with the Olympic Broadcasting Service, there's a team of people, about 30 or 40, and normally, certainly in Rio, I've worked for them now 3 times. I've done 6 Olympics overall: Barcelona in '92, Atlanta in '96, London, which was until Paris was the best by far. I can explain that if you want. And then Rio, Tokyo was just miserable for obvious reasons. And then we had Paris. And what they were worried about in Rio and clearly in Tokyo was the transport and the traffic. And you might have said, well, you could have done the same in London. But London, for all the issues we had in the city in terms of security and worries that traffic was going to be awful, they organised it so well. Absolutely brilliant. Everyone got everywhere. And we had free passes in terms of TfL passes and Oyster cards and so on. So that was brilliant. In Rio, they were so concerned, and I've been to Rio quite a few times in Brazil, and the traffic there, you think London's bad, do not go to anywhere, big cities in Brazil, because that is just chaos. So, for example, if you try and get around Rio, from my hotel to the centre of Rio, one day could take an hour, another day could take 4 hours. There's absolutely no guarantee, and there's no reason why. And then you could get in there in an hour, and then the next, do you know what, I'm going to go home, I've been here for 2 hours, I'm going to come back. It could take you literally 5. I mean, it is extraordinary. So the difference for Paris, for me, from the previous 2, Rio and Tokyo, where we were just limited, is that you commentate off a television, off tube, it's called. So you go in a studio, and they have 2 corridors of studios, 24 of them, and you're told to get in there like an hour and a half before. So if your commentary's at 9 o'clock, you've got to be there for 7:30 just to make sure you're there, you're in position, and you just stay in that little place until that studio, until you finish. You're given headphones, you're given all the details you need. There's a big screen, and then you can take your laptop in or any electronic device so that you can find out facts that you need. So for a big change, I was actually in the venue. I was one of, I think, 6 commentators allowed out. So there were 30, 24 of them were stuck at the IBC, the International Broadcast Centre, which was about an hour north of the Eiffel Tower. I was about half an hour south of the Eiffel Tower at Port de Versailles, and I had a lovely hotel just like 5 minutes walk away. I had the best time of all. I just walked the venue to be there for 7 o'clock. If I had a 9 o'clock match, I was there, sit down, I'm in the venue, I can see the whole thing. I've got a television that's a monitor, so that the picture you see, I am talking to that picture. It's no good me telling you, I can see Snoop Dogg, or I can see Adele, or I can see whoever else you want me to talk about, the Prime Minister, the President, whatever. If you can't see it on television, you're breaking one of the key rules of television commentary, or anything to do with television. Don't talk about things that people can't see. Talk only to the pictures. So I was in this great place. The food was fantastic. In the International Broadcast Centre, it was utterly miserable, horrible, and I can say this now. And it was ludicrously overpriced. I mean, you think London's expensive? Sure, try the IBC. And so I just did my matches and would walk home, and then just go back the next day, and I carried on for 2 weeks of wonderful elite sport.
Dare I mention the beach volleyball?
You can mention the beach volleyball. If you want sex, then okay, go there. If you like women cavorting around in bikinis, maybe that's what you do. I think it's wrong, but there we go. I'd have a proper sports kit. But I went there a few times, because the person I was working with was a young Canadian, Kennedy, whose coach was brother of one of the Canadian beach players. And you have to say, what a venue. I mean, just like London, Horse Guards Parade in Paris. They chose it under the Eiffel Tower. I mean, what a fantastic place. So we went there on the Tuesday before everything started, and we ran into Mel, Kennedy's the sister of Kennedy's brother's sister of Kennedy's coach, if I get that right. And we met them all. We met the world champions. We met the Olympic champions. We met the European champions. Because we got this. That's why I thought I'd wear it. I've got a medal like he has. He'll tell you about his medal shortly from Harold Abraham. Okay. This basically is like your TFL Oyster card. This gets you everywhere in the Olympics. This is my accreditation. I got it signed by the American coach, who was just a genius man. What he had, that was another great advantage of being in the venue. You could go into what's called the mixer, where you can go and interview some of the players and coaches, and they stop. And that's one of the great perks of the job, I find. You talk to people who do it, not other people like commentators. You talk to people who've been there, done it. And this man, Karsh Karai's name is, he's Hungarian born, but he brought up in America. He won the Olympic gold medal in the men's indoor volleyball. He then won the Olympic gold for beach volleyball, and he coached the women to gold in Tokyo. I mean, he is just supreme, and so many wise words, so many interesting things. And you just listened to him. He was phenomenal. But it meant that being in the venue, I just finished the broadcast. You have to carry on for about another 10 minutes or so after the actual final play, and then you can go downstairs and make your way to a mixer, which is out of public view, and the players just walk down a corridor. It's a bit like you could come in here, it's like a press conference room, and they walk in and they stand and they do interviews with television cameras or newspaper people or online reporters, and they just make their way through. Sometimes some want to stop, some don't, but most of them were very good, and you learn so much, and you have an insight of someone who's an elite athlete. It's just wonderful. Try doing that with Premier League football and I've got no chance.
Mm-hmm. You've covered so many sports. How did you get volleyball this time?
I've had volleyball, thankfully, because I remember after I finished Formula 1 in 2010, the head of BBC Olympic Sport called me in 2011 and said, "I'd like you to commentate in London 2012. So I went, wow, that's brilliant. And after the disappointment of losing the Formula 1 job, it's like, wow, that's a pickup. Do you want to do basketball or do you want to do indoor volleyball? And there was absolutely no doubt in my mind it had to be indoor volleyball. I played it a bit at school, badly, and I'd watched some of it. Basketball just seems to be left, right. And it's like 59 points in 2 minutes. That's okay. Doesn't excite me. I'm well aware there'll be those of you who love NBA and think that LeBron James and all the others are just wonderful. And yes, they are gods in many ways and they earn billions. Indoor volleyball, you're lucky to have had a couple of $1,000. But I love the athleticism and the power and the camaraderie at work within the team. Because indoor volleyball has 6 players on court without being boring and being a commentator. In beach, it's just 2. And there are so many different rotations and dynamics about how you play it. And so I got asked to do it in 2011. I did it in 2012, probably very, very badly because I didn't understand nearly enough. I now have been doing it for various people for pretty much solidly for the last 3 or 4 years. Now I feel like almost like I know what I'm talking about. But because that's one of the other things, there may be some of you listening or here tonight who watched various sports which the BBC don't cover, and maybe if you had Discovery Plus, because the BBC.
Did anybody look on Discovery Plus?
Out of interest, anyone go there? One, okay, because I told you to. That's my wife, Kate, before you. All right, okay, very good.
There was this great moment, sort of not great moment, when Keely Hodgkinson won her medal, and they went to her home patch to see everybody. That's right. But they weren't watching the BBC. They were obviously watching Discovery, so were not listening, did not respond in any way at all. And it became very clear quite quickly.
Well, this is, I don't know how much you watch the Olympics, how interested you are. You may like Chariots of Fire, but not really enjoy the Olympics. But that was one of the big things which has changed since Rio, when the BBC had all of the feeds, and iPlayer, if you could negotiate iPlayer and red buttons and so on, you could pick up any feed you wanted of any sport at any time of the day, and you'd have it. You just sit there and watch. And then because the IOC decided to do this deal with Discovery or Eurosport, and therefore the BBC got what they wanted, but the majority of sport is now all on Discovery Plus. So therefore, I could say to Kate, the match starts at 11, have a look and see if it's on the BBC. No, I understand it. Indoor volleyball doesn't count in this country, sadly. It was kicked into touch after 2012 when we had 2 teams, but UK Sport said, that's no good. You only won 1 medal. I only won 1 match. That's not good. It's like telling Queen's Park Rangers fans, you can have as much money as you like, but you've got to qualify for the Champions League in the next 4 years. or Brentford. Come on, ridiculous. Anyway, there we are. That's another subject. But in terms of getting coverage on television, Discovery Plus, pretty much wiped the floor. A lot of people thought the BBC didn't spend too much time talking and not enough live sport. But
I think that's true.
Whatever.
I'm going to come to the audience for questions, comments, whatever. But before I do, why do you think Paris was better than London?
Ooh, did I think it was better? I mean, it started really slowly, a bit like London, because I remember people thinking, do we really want this? It's going to cause chaos. It's going to be really difficult getting around. And then I find, I don't know whether this was your experience, I used to travel on the tube from home in Twyford Avenue in Acton to the indoor volleyball arena, which was in Earl's Court. And I used to go on the tube, and you could sense the first few days, sitting on the tube in the usual thing, and then it's the whole vibe changed. You could sense people really enjoying it, and they were smiling. And this sounds like, this is getting a bit misty-eyed and sentimental. I found just a different mood change, and it was the same in Paris. To begin with, it was trying to find an indoor volleyball arena when I first arrived. It was impossible. You go, volleyball, you go, okay, I'll go over here. Where do we go now? There was no signage. They sort of picked it up and got better. But the first few days, it was okay, and then suddenly people got into, when the French won the rugby sevens, and their great pin-up, Antoine Dupont, who's their great rugby player, probably the best player in the world, or maybe the best player ever, he got a gold medal, and suddenly France bought into it. And I also, he's just picked up because in the indoor volleyball, the men's team were the French team. They had won the gold medal in Tokyo, and that was their first ever medal of any kind. They're a maverick team of people who love to party, but not necessarily play volleyball as with such discipline, should we say. But then the light came on, and every time they played, we had this court set up in this big hall, but they did it in a very good way. So you didn't realise you were in this huge exhibition hall because they put up these big stands, these grandstands, and we had a capacity of 10,200. Every match, and we had 56 of them, every match seemed to be sold out. And when France played, honestly, the emotion, the Marseillaise, any French song that could be played over by the DJ, it was just extraordinary. And when they got to the final and won again, honestly, I thought the roof was going to take off. It was absolute hairs on the back of your neck. It was just one of those extraordinary occasions. But by then, France had got it in a massive way. Léon Marchand, the swimmer, he was supreme as well. So they just loved it. And it was like London. It really galvanised it. Tokyo, you feel very sorry for because COVID just smashed it. Yeah. Rio, well, they're still picking up the price now. And because you couldn't get around enough and travel and transport was so difficult, you didn't really pick up. Whereas France, I went into town to meet friends and so on. It was buzzing. It was wonderful.
We were watching in Normandy, Carol and I, we were on holiday there, watching on the BBC feed, which from the Channel Islands is absolutely immaculate. And no interest that we could see around the town or anything. There was much more interest in the 80th anniversary of D-Day. But there was there were a few things in the Carrefour eventually, and you could buy those very strange mascots.
Frige. What was that about?
Well, that was very odd, wasn't
Yes.
it? Anyway, I did say that we take questions or comments. Yes, right in the middle at the back. Just shout, please.
Chariots of Fire had some wonderful beaches that start very impressively with the runners running through and so on. Do you know where any of them
Yes. Yes, I do. They were at
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, right. The question was, the beaches in the film, Chariots of Fire, where were they? And the one which we saw at the end and at the beginning, that was St Andrews, Scotland. So it wasn't Broadstairs at all. And what you saw, the Carlton Hotel, actually is the clubhouse of St Andrews, one of the greatest, the place where the Royal and Ancient Golf is based. So it's not, you can't go and stay there. I'm very sorry. You might be able to have a drink for about £500, but that's about it. But you can go for a run on the beach because that's free.
Excellent. Good question, good answer. Yes.
Do you think Chariots of Fire could be made now?
Ooh. Do you want a remake?
Why not? But,
What are the things you think might not be remakeable?
well, because it seems to be very much of its period, rather than for all time, and it's got the anti-Semitism issues, the nationalistic issues. These
Yes.
things.
Andy Frogg's here tonight. Sorry. It's a good question. Could it be made now? I think it would be. I think, like so many TV shows like humour. Sometimes you see Blackadder and think, God, could we ever have anything like that now? And I wonder, in the same way, whether you could represent history like that, as we heard Lord Cadogan say, don't do that at all, do it? Bloody frogs, you know. Could you do that now? I don't think you could. So therefore, probably no is the answer. So much of life has moved on. We may not like it, but I think it's gone, and therefore, no, that just stays as a period piece.
Yes, one here.
Firstly, I was in Normandy last week, and I think I saw you there, and was tired of the jingoistic French coverage of the Olympics. I mean, we would never be like that in this country, obviously. I'm intrigued about the Harold Abrahams medal. Somebody alluded.
Oh yes, right. Okay. Yeah, now, we're going to turn the tables here. I've got this, which is just not really a medal at all. But the person who's here with the microphone has got a medal, and it was presented to him by Harold Abrahams. Please tell us more. And where is it?
It's here. I was a sprinter as a schoolboy and a teenager, and so I met Harold Abrahams because just like Ian Charleston was handing out the cups in Scotland, he was handing out the medals at this Sussex Youth Games, and it says first 1967 110 yards relay youth. So I was the Sussex county champion. We only had 4 in our relay team. I couldn't believe how many people they managed to cram into the relay teams in the Olympics, and everybody seems to be allowed one. But no, at the time, I had no idea how significant he was. It was not till the film came out that I realised what an impressive man I had been shaking hands with and got my medal from.
What you don't know also is the Sturm und Drang in the Douglas household this afternoon to try and find said medal. Yeah, I've got it. When we spoke earlier, we said, I'll find it. I'll be there.
I thought I knew where it was, and I didn't. But
He's already prepared earlier.
But so that gave it an added, added resonance for me for that film. And again, anybody who has run, will get those tightening of the throat at the moment when the gun is about to go off, and particularly on the sprints. And yes, I used to have those spikes, and you used to have on the cinder tracks.
You have a trowel, did you?
And you had a trowel. Yeah, I am. Yeah, it does say 1967. So
I wasn't too far behind you, but I never had a trowel. I have to say. Maybe I wasn't that good.
Thank you very much. Well, which is leading me on to say I have now been inspired by Georgia Bell to think maybe it's not too late, do you think, for me to
when was the last park run you did in Gunnersby Park?
Yeah, I don't even do a park run now. So, but yes, please, a question, yeah.
Sorry, just a quick comment and a question. The comment is interesting. Jenny married just by family, David Somerville, and she was slightly sore about the implication that she was against Eric's running. I don't think she was ever against it. She was just terribly concerned about his commitment to the Chinese mission. That's just a comment.
And she was an advisor on the film, I saw at the end.
Yes. She was an extra in that church scene at the end when they sang Jerusalem. The question. So the 100 meters times 10.3 in 1924. So it's improved by about 10%.
We got to 9.7 with the winner this time.
So
Yeah.
less than 10%. Do we know, I'm sure I could Google it, what Eric Little's 400 meter time was and how that compares with the current?
Good question.
That's a good question. I don't know, but we could. Yes, we could have prepared.
No, I failed.
Yeah.
I looked up the 100 meters, but I didn't look up the 400. So I'm very, very sorry. If you give me 30 seconds, I'll do it now.
Yeah.
I'd be intrigued to see.
But the Keely Hodgkinson time is breaking all records, but the record it hasn't broken is the world record, which nobody believes was ever a true record, but she's getting close.
Yeah, I mean, there are different spikes now, and the tracks are different and so on. Maybe the drugs are better, I don't know.
I'm surprised 100 meters hasn't changed
Yes,
that much.
yes, yeah. Interesting, Wikipedia said 10.6, the winning time, not 10.3, which I was struck by, given that he was so obsessed about 10 before 3 and stuff.
What was so great about the film was that in Paris last week, it was the 100 and the 400, which were just amazing and so close, and both very, very powerful, weren't they? And you could see that in this film, why those are certainly the 100 is still called the
Blue Ribbon.
Ribbon.
Yeah.
Other people think maybe the 1500 should be, or whatever. But
It tends to be whenever it tends to whichever race Britain's good at. You know, it's got
Exactly.
and Steve Cram and Steve Ovett. Then it's
I think Kate has information.
Yes,
47.6 seconds.
47.6 was in 2024.
No, 19.
Oh, 1924.
Eric Liddell.
Yes, all right.
47.6.
You did 46, right? And then we're waiting now for 2024. Please, the improvement.
Oh.
Oh, we got that 43. We got it. So 3 seconds difference. That's a lot, isn't it? Well, are you happy with that? What was your best 400 meters time then?
Oh, 2 minutes.
Anybody else? Yes, at the back, Tony.
A slightly odd question. We don't watch much television, but we were with friends in Pembrokeshire and we were addicted to the Olympics, except for one sport.
Breakdancing.
What's your view on breakdancing as an Olympic sport?
My view there, I'm rubbish, frankly, but there we go. I think speed climbing is wonderful. I think I think surfing's good. I think, yes, there are changes. Is softball going to work? They're bringing cricket in 2028. Is that what we want? I don't know. But if it develops cricket, I don't like. You may be great fans of the 100. I loathe it. I think it's a waste of time. There's so many different formats, and the crowd is actually going down. Notably in the 100 actually. But there we are. Don't tell the BBC that they've just done a new contract. But but no, I don't like breakdancing. I think there's too much. It's like there's not enough. It's not obvious as to how you judge that, and it's very much your own view of how it of what is that a good artistic gymnastics and so on. That's 5.8, 5.7. Oh, actually been 3.9. No, no, it doesn't grab me at all. Yes. So coming back to you in a minute. Yes.
The thing I was going to say is that when the Olympics were in 1924, I mean, they were just athletic competition or whatever, but as you were saying, that the Olympics now are effectively a television spectacle, and therefore what makes it in or not is really surely to do with television and television.
Correct. I mean, they're desperately trying.
Cricket's in because they're trying to get India interested.
Yes. Yes. No, it's very much now a promotional vehicle, and if you stayed to the end, which actually I did, the closing ceremony with Tom Cruise coming down and then we saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and so on, and Billie Eilish. That's going to be razzmatazz in a big way in LA. So let's see how that goes. But you're right. It's now because sport is such a big business, and there was remember the Harlem Globetrotters formed part of the USA team. I think it was in Barcelona in 1992. The first games I did. It was like, why do we want them in? This is an Olympic ideal. Where are the Corinthian ideals? Long gone now. And it's just about, can we showcase a sport? Can we deliver cricket to a bigger audience, as you say? They're trying to break cricket in the United States and Canada as well, in North America, as much as bringing India in. So it's not just about athletic prowess. There's also a lot of money to make in some way.
Absolutely. And are they taking sports out to make room for?
Yes, wrestling I think is in danger. Modern pentathlon is probably on its last legs. Who knows what else may happen with given what happened with Charlotte Dujardin, whether how long dressage is going to hang on, for example. So that they are always, they are, some go out and some come back in. I do think there are, but modern pentathlon now. I mean, as you, Andrew, as you said about Chariots of Fire in 1924, it's of its age. Now there aren't many of us who, might be some people who ride horses, but not too much dashing around here. And I wonder whether that's all changed a bit as well. Are they going to keep shooting? I don't know. Maybe the USA love it because that's probably the national pastime.
What about the fact that Britain got far fewer golds than it has in the past? So it got a total number of medals. The medal table is always based on the gold, but the Americans always go for the total number. I think we will now be going for the total number.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and dare I say it, if you were listening to the Today programme on BBC Radio 4 yesterday morning, you'd have heard me ask that question to someone who was a very interesting person. I recommend the book, The Long Win, The Better Way to Succeed. This isn't a plug because I get any money for it, far from it, but I found it a fascinating read. It's written by someone called Kath Bishop, who is a 3-time Olympian. She's a world champion rower, and it opens with a chapter about her race in 2004 in Athens. And she was in a pair with Catherine Granger, now Dame Catherine Granger, and they were going for gold, and they were the red-hot favourites. And it's a wonderful chapter about, just break it down, 1915, what's the time? 9:15, 9:16, 9:17, 9:18, 9:19, 9:20, the 5 minutes it takes to race this particular 2,000-metre stretch of water. And it's really powerful. And the bottom line is she actually came second. There's this wonderful bit where she says, we were rowing, we were directed, they never won a medal, so they were directed into a special area where all winners go, bronze, silver and gold. And so they were making their way there. But just before that, she looked across and counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those of you who know rowing will know there are 8 lanes, therefore 8 crews. She got to 6. They were number 7, so therefore 1 crew had beaten them. They got silver. And it was a really, she writes it so well, it was like, God, what have we done? Have we let everyone down, all the people who we thought, told us, you're going to get gold? And this is what always been told. A coach had always told them, are you a champion or a loser? That was the way of motivating her and motivating the team. Now, once upon a time, that may have been the way. I don't think she thought it was the best way, but anyway. But she writes really well, and somehow she had to work out in her mind, have we failed by getting a silver at the Olympic men in the Olympic Games, or have we achieved? And it's a wonderful book about, and she goes on to become, after stopping rowing, she becomes a diplomat and works in Bosnia, trying to do peacekeeping, so that's a bit more life and death, don't you think? She's also now a leadership coach. It's a really wonderful book, and it works not just for sport, but also business, for education, diplomacy, whatever. It's just a really interesting way of, all in our lives, what is success? And she came to the conclusion that it's all about the journey, which sounds a very hackneyed now expression in 2024, but you can see where she's going from. It's what are you trying to achieve, and what's your point of success? The fact that you've been in A, you've got there, you've got to the start line. B, you finished. C, you've got a medal, etc., etc. It's how you go through it, because there was another Olympian on the Today programme on Tuesday who you could just tell he was Tom Daly's synchro partner, and they won a bronze medal. I don't know whether you heard him, but he was like, I'm taking a break now because, for me, diving is all very mental and it takes a lot. And at the moment, I just need a break because I don't know what I want to do with my life now. And this man he's got an Olympic medal. And Chris Hoy, the great Chris Hoy, one of the greatest Olympians ever, plunged into depression in 2000 after winning his medals because he just didn't know what to do. She writes, Kath talks about Olympic champions coming into the dressing room and with a gold medal and just throwing it into the bin. What about, what was that for? Was that all about? And that's extraordinary ability. So therefore, I'm with her. The gold medal, yes, but it's just the number of medals. But also, it's like, to me, it's also about participation. There is so much more. We were meant to be inspiring a generation in London in 2012, and yet the participation figures haven't really gone up. In fact, in many cases, they did. And we didn't help ourselves, I don't think, by the motto, stay indoors and never stay active, but just stay indoors during the pandemic. So we're making it more and more, we're narrowing the base from which people can be recruited. So I would say medals, yes, that's an idea. Well, medals generally, but not golds all the time. Because rowing, for example, without getting too detailed, they got kicked after Tokyo. Absolutely dreadful. 4th place. All the money that rowing gets, they're one of the biggest beneficiaries.
But they
of money from
recruit.
the UK sport. But that's what sport's like. You can't always win. You can't always win the Premier League. You can't always win the FA Cup. You can't win cricket or whatever it might be. They go again, and guess what? They got medals in 8 of the 10 events this year. That's what it's about.
So, Jonathan, you notice, cleverly brought us round to books. He is going to be chairing 2 events in the book festival, one about baseball, one about the first,
Cricket, if you don't know that, just beginning to.
the first black footballer who then wasn't allowed actually to play even though he had been selected. We also have the father of Georgia Bell speaking about his new book. That's Andy Bell, who is Channel 5's political editor. He's on the local authors showcase. And of course, we have Claire Balding of Olympic fame at Chiswick House. So all human life is here in the book festival. Thank you for coming. Make sure you've got one of those if you haven't had one already. But please, huge thanks to Jonathan for all of his wisdom. Thank you.